careful. Anyways, good. Thank you so much again, everyone, for joining the call. Welcome to Clap Academy Introduction to Product Management Training. This is today's agenda, everyone, and it is going to take the sequence that we have displayed on the screen. We are going to have the introduction to Clap Academy. What is Clap Academy about? We'll talk about the Clap Academy team and the trainer for the evening. And we are going to acknowledge the participants on the call, but we can't have a roll call going through everyone to speak. And then after the training for today, which is going to be next, after that, we are going to have a survey rolled out, a short survey that I would expect you to respond to. We will talk about that when we get to that point. We will talk about today's landscape, digital landscape, and what is the job situation looking like in today's job market. What are the next steps after today's training? It will be good for everyone to have an understanding of that. And then we are going to talk about the training schedule after now, because this is just an introductory session to product management. The full program is something you need to attend to have a full understanding of product management as a practice, and also be able to be part of what we do here, which goes beyond theoretical training to practical hands-on experience so that you learn by doing. That experience is what prepares you for the job market. That experience is what prepares you for entrepreneurship or helps you to improve your business, which Clap Academy is about. We are also going to talk about the earning potential of product managers. We're talking about product management today. We have an upcoming training for business analysis. We would also mention that. We will talk about the live products and projects that we have within a Clap Academy portfolio of products that those who are going to be trained on this platform are going to be working on to have practical experience. And then we will talk about the vacancies that are open around here. Over to you.
Thanks, Kali, for the introduction. So let me share my screen. Okay. Please let me know if you can see my screen.
Yes, we can.
Okay. Hello, everyone. Hope you're all doing fine. So let's start with the session. So let's look at what we are going to cover in today's session. So let's look at the agenda. So we are going to talk about product management and an introduction to product management for a person who does not know anything about product management. Okay, we'll also be doing some case studies about how do you identify a new product opportunity. Okay, we'll be looking at the various different roles in a product team. Okay, and then product management cannot be complete without talking about agile development process. So we'll be talking about what is agile and how the complete process works. Okay, and agile cannot be complete without talking about sprints and scrum ceremonies. So all of that is very much a part of product management, and we'll be kind of throwing some light on that. And then we'll be looking at product discovery. How do you discover a new product, and product delivery? Okay, so it's like the end-to-end cycle of product creation. And this is something which is very interesting. We are going to talk about design thinking and rapid experimentation. This is something which is being talked about a lot in these days. In any big company you go, you'll see they talk about design thinking. It's very much prevalent at Google and any of these big companies. So we'll look at some case studies there. And then finally, we'll also talk about traits of a good product manager and how can you be a good product manager. Okay, and some insights into future of product management, and definitely some quizzes. Okay, well, so I'm a product manager, so I should not be talking about agendas. I should be talking about outcomes, because what is it that you can take from this session, right? So what you can expect is good introductory knowledge of product management and the best practices in the industry. Okay, you'll get to know about agile, like we spoke, scrum and scrum ceremonies, and some interesting fact about product management. All of this will help you a lot in whatever kind of job you're doing, because it kind of management is all about problem solving, and that is what we'll be doing today. So you'll also have a knowledge of creating a product end to end, from conceptualization to market go live. And finally, like I told you, product management is all about solving problems. And the best thing, the good thing about this is, these problems are also life problems. So, product frameworks for solving product and also life problems. So, that's a good thing about product management. So we'll be looking at some of them. Okay. So let's get started. If someone can tell me what is a product, a quick, one or two words, what comes to your mind? What is a product?
Wow.
Yeah, let's make it as interactive as possible,
Yes.
everyone. Feel free if you
It's a very
want.
basic question.
A product simply a solution.
Solution. Perfect. Anyone else?
So a product delivers a service.
Service. Perfect. Okay. Good enough. Right. So let me start. So, like someone said, right, a product is a solution. It can also be a service. So, of course, product is an object made available for consumer use, right, to satisfy the desire or need of consumer, which is exactly what he said. It's all about solution for a consumer. You always start with the consumer in mind, right? Next, like our friend said, it can be tangible, which can be physical, like you see the Ferrari, you see the Apple Watch, you hold a Coca-Cola, you have it, right? Or it can be like intangible, which is, let's say, Airbnb or Netflix. So that brings me to a service, right? So even a service can be a product. So let's talk about Uber and Airbnb. These are intangibles, right? But we have a category called as service as a product. So these are products. Okay. So what we'll be covering in this session is product management at large and also technical product management, for softwares. So what is product management? Let me look at the Wikipedia or dictionary, kind of. Yeah, any question?
What happened?
Okay. I would just request everyone to go on mute, and if you want to kind of ask a question, you can unmute yourself.
You got that black line up from there.
Sorry, if you're
Uh,
not speaking,
Babalola?
mute yourself. All right.
Yeah, okay. Thank you. Right. So let me look at the dictionary definition of what is product management, right? So product management is an organizational function within the company which deals with, one is new product development, right? Whenever a company wants to develop a new product, the product managers kind of come in the picture and they kind of look at what are the problems and how do kind of you address those problems with some products, right? Business justification. So for any product you need to justify why that product has to be created, because companies kind of invest a lot in this product. So business justification of that solution or the product. Planning and forecasting as to what you are going to do, when, how. Okay. And how will it help you, right? And how much will it help you? So that's all about planning and forecasting. Then pricing. So in some companies, product managers also help in pricing the products. Maybe not in all companies, but in some companies it happens. And of course, the product manager is a big part of any product launch. Okay. And finally, marketing the product. So product manager also helps in marketing the product. Okay. So if you look at this, it's a function that is responsible for a product's overall success, right? It starts from the product creation to to the market launch and then the marketing of that. Okay. So now let's look at the role of product manager. So product manager, in many companies, many they call it the CEO of the product, or like you have a CEO for the company, a product manager is CEO for that product, so that anything that happens with the product is the responsibility of product manager, and also the product manager is accountable for that, right? So they own the product strategy as to what your product is going to do, what product do you need to create, what is the target audience. So all of that strategy is owned by product manager. They're also accountable for the product success and failures, like I said, and their central point of coordination. So if you see this diagram, you will see that product manager is in the center, right? Talking to the customers, talking to the support teams, talking to operations, talking to marketing and sales people of how can they, uh, get the help from them and helping them, talking to legal just to see the legal aspects of the product, talking to the press, talking to finance, right? So it's a very central role in the organization, and it's very important for the success of the product. Okay. So with that in our mind, let's look at the timeline of product management. So let's look at the timeline of all the different management streams, right? Starting with finance. So finance, has the origin of finance was in 14th century with the creation of first bank in Italy. Okay, so banks have been in the modern finance has been since then. Talking on marketing came into origin in 16th century in Italy when they started the first weekly magazine where they used to market products, market services, right? So it's a very old kind of stream that way. Let's talk about project management. So project management came into being in 1910 when Gantt chart was invented by Henry Gantt, and that's like the one of the features of one of the big features in project management, right? Managing those Gantt charts and managing timelines. Let's talk about product management. So product management started as an in FMCG as offline product management, which means dealing with actual products. It started in Procter and Gamble in 1931 when they created the role of product manager, who would own the products, who would own the success and failures of the product, and what to do with the products. But if we talk about software product management, okay, that came in being in 1980s when Intuit, an American company, kind of started with a role called product management, who would in fact be responsible for developing what has to be done and then delivering it to the market. So if you just compare this timeline, the reason for the slide is to make you aware that, see, these are all old streams, but product management is a very nascent stream. It's just coming to begin, right? But having said that, it is one of the most rapid growing career stream. So if you look at this, as per a survey, product management is one of the hottest and fastest growing career roles in business, is growing roles in business right now. And in the last 2 years, the product management role in US have grown by astounding 32%, which is, if you see this graph, it is 5 times of any other roles. So that tells you, how important product management and product managers are, and the world is realizing the strength of product management. And in the coming time, this will go even further, where you will see a lot of product management jobs being created. And that is why this is very important for you to know what a product manager is and what the product manager does, because either you will be a product manager or you will be interacting with some product managers, right? Also, as per a survey by Glassdoor, product managers is ranked fourth on the total, all the jobs, the best jobs in 2020. Product manager ranks fourth. It has been in the top 10 since a long time. And if you see, 7 out of 10 product managers are very satisfied with their careers. So this is just to make you realize, right, that it's a very strong career stream. It's a very growing and very powerful career stream that we are talking about. Okay, so let's look at some famous product managers, right? So one, this guy you'll know, right? He's a CEO of Google, Sundar Pichai. So Sundar Pichai was a product manager in Google. He helped create Google Toolbar, Google Chrome, and Google Drive, also Google Maps. And from that way, he got recognized, and then he became the CEO of Google. Reid Hoffman, the co-founder of LinkedIn, was a product manager at Apple, right? Marisa Mayer, she was the ex-CEO of Yahoo, and she was a product manager at Google. She owned Google Homepage and Google AdWords. Also, she's been recognized as one of the 100 most influential people in the world by Time Magazine. You'll know this guy, Stewart Butterfield. So he's the co-founder of Slack and Flickr. He was a product manager at Yahoo. If you've seen the business news in last week, Slack has been acquired by Salesforce for an astounding $27 billion. So that's a huge amount of money. And this just goes to show, because that product managers, they really make it big in the corporate world because of the way they solve problems, and it's all about problem solving, right? Susan Wojcicki is longest serving CEO of YouTube. She was a product manager with Google. She owned Google AdSense. Okay. And you will know these two people, right? These two gentlemen. So while they were not product managers in the technical term, but they are regarded as the two best product managers of our time. So Steve Jobs is a designer product manager, where he designed a lot of things. He was not involved in the tech. Whereas Elon Musk is a technical product manager. He is hardcore into the technicalities and solving the engineering issues, right? And that brings us to the topic that there are various different types of product managers in the industry, ranging from technical product manager to data product manager to growth product managers. We cover this topic a lot in detail in our product management course, and that is one thing we'll cover in the course. So let's look at a case study here, and let's look at a story of how do you identify a new product opportunity. Okay. So in 2007, there were two roommates who were living in San Francisco, USA, and they were poor and they could not afford to pay the rent. So they wanted to find a way to pay their rent. So let's talk about in the product management term, you look at this as business objective that you want to pay rent. Okay. This business objective can be about the customer or can be about yourself, right? Okay. So next, they knew that there was a big design conference which was happening in San Francisco and it was getting difficult to get a hotel accommodation. Okay. So this is called as identifying a product opportunity or identifying a feature or a product gap in the market, right? Next, so what they did was this pair decided to turn their loft into an area that could fit 3 air mattresses. So they had a loft and they just kind of fit this air mattresses. That is what you call as product discovery. Okay, where you kind of discover what product can I make. So along with the mattress and the night's sleep, they promised a nice breakfast, right? So that's called as value addition or value proposition for the product. So they created a simple website called as Air Bed and Breakfast. And they said, you can book rooms with locals rather than hotels. Why go with hotels? Book rooms with locals and stay with them for cheaper. Okay. This is what you call as the MVP, minimum viable product. I'm just giving you some terminologies. We'll cover this in this session and much more in depth in our product management course. Okay. And so over the years, this company enhanced its offerings and changed name from Air Bed and Breakfast to Airbnb. Okay, you all know of Airbnb. There's no one who has not heard of Airbnb, right? And this is called as iterations. Continuously enhancing your product, continuously looking at customer feedback and kind of improving something. Let's talk about today. So this that you see is the first Airbnb apartment. Okay. And today in valuation in 2020 is $100 billion. So if you just see this news which came last week, Airbnb IPO source, it clinching a valuation of $100 billion. They started with $80 as a rent for their first room to $100 billion, and 800 million guest arrivals till date. That's a huge number, right? 800 million guests. So this is what you do. This is just one case study of how you apply the product management principles to look at the gap and create a product and then iterate it and then kind of make it big, right? So this is just one simple example, and in our course we'll talk about many more such examples, right? So next, let's talk about the role confusion. So if you talk about product manager in many parts of the world, it's a very new stream and people still don't know what a product manager does or how a product manager is different than the roles which they already know of. So let's say there's a lot of confusion between a product manager and a project manager. Okay. So let's talk about that. A product manager acts as the CEO of the product, like we said. So product manager decides what happens with the product, what are the features, right? What to do, when to do. A project manager acts as a CEO. So they look at the operations, whatever the product manager has in mind, how do I deliver it best in the least time with the least resources and maintaining the quality. Okay. So if you look at this, the role of product manager starts with the new idea, where they kind of look at a new idea, they look at opportunities, they look at what is the outcome that has to be done. They look at how a product launch happens, and that's the complete product life cycle they manage. A project manager comes when you have a concrete idea and what has to be done. So they start the project and they ensure that everything that is to be delivered goes smoothly, and then they finish the project. Okay. So product manager is a very strategic role which deals with what and why, whereas project manager is also strategic, but it's more of a tactical role which deals with how and when, right? A product manager's focus will be external, where they'll deal with what is happening in the external environment, whereas a project manager will look at the internal stakeholders, internal employees, internal timelines, all of that. So the major task of a product manager is looking at product vision, product roadmaps, customer issues, scope definition, whereas a project manager would look at resource management, risk management in your product, in your projects, right? Timeline management, adherence to scope, adherence to project budgets. So that is what a project manager does. If you have any queries, you can just stop me whenever, but yes. So the next big confusion.
Yeah, I was gonna ask, is the role of a product manager any different from a product owner?
Yeah, that's a good question, and we'll be kind of covering that in the next slide. So let's wait till then, and if it's not clear, I'll kind of emphasize more on that. Okay.
Lovely. Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. So the next big confusion is between a product manager and a business analyst, right? So see, business analyst at times in companies, it's a very fluid role, and people define business analyst in different ways in different companies, right? In many companies, business analysts also act as product managers. So let's talk about the different ways in which business analysts work. So one is business analyst as the connector between the product manager and the dev team. Okay, so you have the product manager who kind of gets all the requirements, what is to be done, and then he or she passes it on to the business analyst, and the business analyst kind of discusses and kind of handles the dev team accordingly. So the business analyst is like a bridge. The second, which happens in my company also, is wherein the business analyst is like a bridge between the product team and the external environment, the subject matter experts, the stakeholders. So they look at the customers, they look at the customer issues, they look, and they kind of relay the information back to the product team and say, okay, hey, this is what the issues are, this is what we should be building, this is what our customers are saying. And they also help the product managers, right, in that way. So the product manager kind of takes information from the customers and also from the business analyst. So that is the second role, second type of way in which a business analyst acts. And in many companies, a business analyst also is like a shared resource who will kind of act as a glue between multiple teams. So let's say you have a Google, right, which has suite of products, Google apps, Google Maps, Google Search, Google. So business analyst in this case, maintain uh, maintain alignment between all these products. Okay. So if I have to talk about this, so product manager bridges the gap between the market and the organization, whereas business analyst is a very powerful role dealing with the change in business process. So any business process change you have to do, the business analyst come into picture. Okay. The role of product manager is ownership of the product, whereas business analyst you'll see is a very facilitator role. So they won't set the product vision, but they will make sure that everything goes smoothly. Whatever information is required, they'll get it. Okay. The focus of product manager is largely outward facing, like we saw, whereas for a business analyst, like we said, depends, different companies have different definitions and different way of dealing with it. You will find one way or the other, but majorly it is inward focus, where they look at the practices, processes, internal systems to look at what is the best way to build, what is the best way to support the product manager, and what is the best way to kind of look at the customer interest. Okay.
Just actually join the program online.
Yeah. So any queries still there? Now let's look at, so there are 4 different roles we are talking about, and product owner is one of it. So let's look at first what is the difference between a product manager and a product owner. In most companies, in many companies, these roles are used interchangeably, and you will find either a product manager or a product owner. And in big companies, you will find properly both of them are there, right? So product manager is like one who owns the complete product and sets the product roadmap. The product owner will be continuously talking to the product manager, looking at, okay, what has to be done, what is the roadmap, what is the vision, and how do I do it best. So they'll be focusing on the features. Okay, they'll be focusing on what is the product backlog. We'll see what a product backlog is. So they are more into the nitty gritties of things, what the product manager wants to achieve. A product manager will look at product market fit. Is my product best for this market? Will it help in the market? Will it help my customers? Whereas product owner, once the product manager has decided the product market fit, we take this requirements, put the requirement into proper definition, put it, give it back to the development team and make sure those happens, right? In many way, product owner also, there's a very high level of overlapping of skills and requirements in between these two roles. But if you can see, as product owner is like a help for the, helps the product manager to achieve the product focus, the product vision, and to do the basic things that are supposed to be done. Okay. Then you have a program manager. In a B2B company, you would find this role called program manager. So like a product manager owns a product, they will own either service or operations. They're looking at the customers and how does a release happen properly for the customer. If the customers are facing any issues with the release, how is the delivery pipeline for the customers? If there's any change management to be done, any require for the customers, how does the change management happen properly for the customer? So the focus is completely on customers and the operations, and whatever help is required by the product team, they help that. They help with the customer kind of requirements, etc. So that's the third role. And project manager, we already seen that they own the project. They look at the project plan and they look at the coordination. Okay. Like I said, this many organizations use these roles interchangeably, and because product management is a new field, many people, many organizations don't use them in the pure terms the way it has to be. Okay.
Yeah.
So does that answer your question?
Mm.
It does. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Right. So let's have a quiz time, right? Basis what we kind of just saw. So the first thing is, I like you to answer this, but so I create a Gantt chart for ensuring on-time product delivery. Okay, so I am make sure that delivery happens on time, and I manage the resources and the scope of the product. So what is my role? Can someone just answer this? Am I a product manager? Am I a project designer? I'm a project
Designer.
manager or a program manager?
Program
Designer.
manager.
A
Designer.
program manager.
Project manager.
Program manager.
All right. So yes, you're right. So it's project manager. Okay. While yes, some of these things are also the program manager, right? But the program manager is looking more at the delivery happens properly, right? But for the delivery to happen on time, it's the role of the project manager to handle the project. The project manager handles the scope and the resources. The program manager does not have any control on the scope and resources of the product, okay, or the team. So that's the role of a project manager, where they look at maintaining things on time and quality. Okay, the next is I track delivery plans for B2B product and I ensure smooth change management for my customers. So which role is this?
Program manager.
Yes, perfect. So that's the program manager we spoke about, right? They track the delivery plans. They track if to make sure that everything happens smoothly for the customer. If there are releases in B2B products, B2B companies, the program managers kind of do that. Finally, so in most companies, I am the final person to sign off a product, even after the QA team signs off the product, right? So who am I? Am I the product manager, product designer, or project?
I'll be the product manager.
Yes.
The product
yes.
manager.
So while we say we have a QA team, but in most companies, in most product companies, the product manager is the final authority to sign off on any product. So any release that goes in the market has to be first signed off by the product manager after everyone signs it off, right? And that's why we say that the product manager is the final authority and has the final, kind of accountability for the product success or failure. So that's right. It's product manager.
A question, please, before you go.
Yes.
On the last slide,
Yeah.
if you had one of the options to be another option to include product owner, which one would you go for then?
Oh, okay. So right, that would still be a product manager, okay, because product owner owns it, but after all, it's so I'll tell you, this is a very, it's a very thin line between that. It's you look at product manager and product owner as one team in many companies, okay, and that's why a product manager is responsible for the success of the product, okay, and that's a role of the product owner too. But if both of them are on the team, the final success say would be the product manager, okay. And that also depends from team to team, from companies to companies, but it would be one of them.
What would the product owner be doing differently then in that team?
So product owner, see, like we said, product manager is a very strategic role, right? The product manager would define, look at the customer problems, talk to the customers, and look at what are the feature gaps, and they would also set the vision that, okay, I want my product to be in the next 1 year, I want my product to be AI enabled. I want to do some deep learning in my product, and then the product owner will look at that and then kind of start creating stories around that, start grooming the story, start talking to the team, so it's more of, like I said, it's more of in the detail, whereas the product manager has the overall responsibility. So I'll tell you, in companies where we don't have product owners, like in my company, we don't have product owner. There, the product manager does all of that job, right from conceptualization to talking to the customers, to writing the stories, to grooming the stories, to ensuring things happen on place, happen on time, and with the quality, and then kind of signing it off. Okay. But in companies where you have product owners, some of the load of the product manager gets taken off by the product owner. So this product owner is more like a supporting role with the product manager, managing the complete thing.
Yeah.
So if also look at this, a product manager would look at a product timeline, product roadmap of about 12 months or 1 year, whereas a product owner would look at the next 2-3 years. So it's 2-3 months. Sorry, I'm saying 2-3 months, right? So in terms of vision, the product manager is looking at long term, whereas the product owner is looking at short term kind of things to kind of align with that long term vision of the product manager.
yeah.
Also, if in companies, if you don't have a product manager, then this complete role is done by the product owner.
Great. Thank you very much, Pratik. Let me just add to this, because some of these roles are known by different titles in different companies. In some cases where you have product manager, you could have chief product owner in some companies, and they could also, in some companies, for instance, in Amazon and in Facebook, product managers are actually referred to as program managers, that I know. And
Yes.
product manager is a business function, whereas product owner is assigned role to a team. And a product manager has its own department, whereas the product owner is part of a department, maybe an engineering department or any other department. The product owner's role, the product manager's role is cross-functional. The product manager works with sales teams, marketing team, finance, and other stakeholders, whereas the product owner role deals with project managers more deeply involved in the production of features and development. So these are some of the differences I know between product managers and product owners. Thank you.
Thanks, Kali. And like you said, in Microsoft, they have the role called program manager. These are essentially product managers.
Yeah.
And that's why you say, no, these roles in corporates, they're used kind of interchangeably.
Yeah.
Okay.
They vary in different companies. Yeah. Okay,
Yes.
go ahead.
Okay. So let's get to the next topic, which is agile terminologies. Now, when we speak about product management in today's term, 90% of it is agile. I would say even 95%. So the knowledge of agile is very important. Okay. So let's look at, these are some of the components which are true to agile, and also to maybe a waterfall model, which you have in a conventional way, right? We used to have this waterfall models, and now we have agile, and we can cover this deeply in our product manager course. But let's look at a quick overview of that. So let's look at a product roadmap. So this is one of the key terminologies, right? Like we have been speaking about. So product roadmap is a plan of action of how a product will evolve over time. Okay. And usually that time frame in companies is from 2 months to 1 year. In some company it is more than 1 year. But that's what you look at, in the next 1 year, this is what I want to achieve with my products, and that's what you call as product roadmap. So for example, in my company Zycus, it's one of the top 5 companies in world for procurement softwares. Okay. the, the product roadmap for our company, from our product, is that we want to enable all our products. We want to AI enable all our products. So we want to create a lot of bots that will help clients. So that's our product roadmap for the next 1 year. Okay. So why do we have a product roadmap? Because this is essential to communicate how do your short term and long term business goals kind of go hand in hand, right? So you have some business goals, but to achieve those goals, you need to kind of your products need to align to that, and that's why you create a product roadmap. So it gives you overview whether are your goals aligning short term and long term, and why it is meant for internal stakeholders and also for customers. So you need to give your product roadmap to the higher management. Like I always have a weekly meeting with my CEO where I talk about, the product. I talk about the product roadmap. We'll review things, how things are going. So the top management needs to know about what the product roadmaps are, and also the customers. So if you see in B2B companies, a lot of customers, even before signing the contract, they will ask for product roadmaps. That happens a lot in procurement because they need to know, okay, today your product has these features, but if I'm signing a 3-year contract with your company, what features am I going to get in the future? Okay. Or maybe today your company does not have the features I need, but 1 year down the line, will your company have the features that I need? And because these contracts are very high value contract, they need to be very sure about this. So in that way, product roadmaps are very important, not just for your internal stakeholder, but also for your clients. Okay. The next thing is product backlog. Now your product backlog, like you see here, includes a lot of things. So your product backlog will be derived from your roadmap. So you define the roadmap, and then you from that roadmap derive the backlog. Okay. What does it contain? It contains new features that you want to introduce. It contains any enhancements of existing features, any infrastructure updates, any server enhancements, any architectural enhancements, any bug fixes in your existing software. Okay. Or any technical debt. What we mean by technical debt is something which you've been kind of putting off, some architectural change which is required for you to grow. Okay. And this will cover in detail in the course, but that's what you call as technical debt. That's something which you have taken a shortcut in the past, and now your architecture is not allowing you to scale. So that is something that you do in your product backlog. Okay. So backlog is developed in a collaboration between the product manager and the engineering team. A lot of times the product manager will not be aware of everything that needs to go in the backlog. For example, let's say you want to upgrade your servers, product manager might not be knowing, those technical details, but the engineering team will come and tell them, that, okay, there is this new technology. And if you want to kind of really scale, we need to go to, let's say, that new server, or maybe we need to change the database from, let's say, MySQL to MongoDB. Okay, so that's why you have the engineering team also kind of helping you in developing the backlog. Okay, now let's look at this as a micro picture. So you have the product vision. Okay, and the vision kind of, with that vision you create product strategy. For what do I do to achieve that vision? Okay, this is like your value proposition. What are your standout features? What are your business goals? What market do you want to address? Okay, basis that strategy, you would create product roadmap, which you already saw, that what are you going to implement in the next 12 months, what is the time frame, what are the release goals, what are the features, right? So this is called as the product strategy process. And then out of that product roadmap will come your product backlog. Okay, I would kind of encourage you to just note down some of the things, because when you also go into an interview, these things help you a lot. Because I have seen many people, many senior product managers who do not know all of these things, right? So it always helps to kind of know these things and know these terminologies. These are very standard terminologies in the industry. Okay. Next, let's come
Hello.
to, yes,
Quick question, Pratik. So
yes,
where does product goal come in play here?
product goal.
Yeah.
Right. So your product goal, which you call as, first you'll have a product vision, and basis that you will kind of, so the vision is normally for your company, okay, that I want to be a leader in this space. And that is what you will decide a product strategy and a product goal. So it comes here, right? Where you say, okay, this is what my product is, and this is what my product should be achieving. So you see business goals, that's what you have. So when you
All right.
talk
Thank
about
you.
business goals, it's also the product goals, right? Okay. So let's look at these four aspects now. So we call them as, when you if you kind of write Jira thing, or you use normally Jira for all this product management stories and everything. So you have something called as theme is the first thing. So let's say in any product management, let's say in your company, you want to increase your website engagement. So you will call that as a theme. Okay, my theme is that I want to increase my website engagement. Below that theme, to support that theme, you have something called as epic. Okay, so which means to do this, what all do I need to do? Okay, so to increase my website engagement, I first of all I need to have a good login usability. It should not happen that people log in and they are not able to log in half of the time, right? So I need to improve my login usability. Also, I need to add some videos so it gets easy for the people to use my website and they kind of come back on to my website, right? So those are called as epics. Okay, where you divide the bigger task into something which can be kind of compartmentalized into one logical group. Okay, now to have this epic you need to have multiple stories. I've just shown one here, but you can have 10 or 15 stories in an epic. So wherein, let's an example, you say to improve my login usability, I need to give an option to log in with OTP. Okay, and this is one way in which you write a story. There are very different ways in which you write user stories. We deal with that in the course, and now this is one popular way. So you say, as a user, I want login with OTP functionality. Okay, so that it gives me I can use it in case I forget my password. Okay, so this is a standard format. As a dash, I want dash, so that dash. So it's called as user story. Okay, now the user story is also one which is like a smallest unit. You cannot smallest logical unit of thing to be done. So you cannot break it down into further thing. But the user story gets broken down into tasks for the developers to do. So if I want to implement login functionality, first of all, I need a functionality to generate an OTP, generate a 6-digit OTP. And second, I need something that can send the OTP to the user's registered mobile, right? So I'm breaking the story into something which are not independent, they're dependent on each other, right? What do I do with generating an OTP? I need to kind of send that OTP, right? And that's what you'll see, they are kind of interdependent, but a story is independent. So this is like the concept of themes, epics, user stories, and tasks. And this even most product managers won't be using theme, they don't even know about themes, but this helps a lot in your interview. When you kind of talk about these things, people know that okay, you have some good knowledge about the complete agile and the way things happen. Okay, next,
So
let's.
question before you go from there as well.
Yes.
So where does features, where does that sit in this?
Features, right?
Yeah, features. Yeah.
So features are features are your epics, let's say. See like this feature is either I want to improve a login usability, I want to add a new video. Those are called as your features. Okay, so features can be a two type. One is this, and second is the transactional feature, which means okay, login with OTP is one transactional feature, right? I can have something else, that okay, I want video help for everything. I need to add question marks wherever there are some difficult things, so the user can just hover on that and get some help text right then and there. So these are the features. So you'll kind of break down features into epics and stories. And see, every company has a different way of writing user story. I'll tell you, 80% of the companies do not follow proper methodology. And this is something which I'm telling you is very standard. If you don't follow this, nothing will kind of, you can still kind of go ahead with your business. But when it really matters is if you want to scale your business, and if you want to kind of write stories which will be applicable, even if you kind of have, let's say, 1 million users, this is where you want to kind of follow this kind of proper methodology. Otherwise you would kind of go in a very haphazard way, and then you would get stuck in the later part and you will end up creating bad products, right? And that's why it's very important. So features will come into your epics and also your user stories. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thanks. Right, so let's talk about the scrum team. So this is like the formal scrum team that they define. There are three parts to it. One is the product owner. So you can talk about product manager and product owner. Okay, so both of them are here who kind of own what is the desired thing and why it is desired. So why is very important. Why are you doing what you're doing, right? And one that communicated to the team and the scrum master. The scrum master is a very important role, who we call as keeper of scrum. So they are the processor, they are the facilitator who makes sure everything happens. And we look at so we have daily meetings in any sprint. So scrum masters make sure that things are not getting blocked, people are working, things are happening on time. So that's the role of a scrum master. Okay, and then we have scrum team members, or what we call as the development team members, who own how and how quickly that work can be delivered. So you'd have the engineers here, you'll have the designers, you'll have the QA people here. All of them would be a part of the team, development team. Okay, So that's what we call as a Scrum team in a nutshell. Okay, so let's talk about what is the ideal team size, and this is a very famous rule. So Amazon's two pizza rule of ideal agile team size. And Jeff Bezos says that any team that you create should be only as big that you should be able to feed that team with two pizzas. Okay, which means it should not be more than 12 people. Okay, so if you look at two pizzas, they have like 12 slices. So you should at least be able to feed the team with two pizzas. Okay, and that gives you better productivity. So Jeff Bezos says if a team cannot be fed with two pizzas, it's too big. Okay, so that means that you can have minimum 3 members to 9 members in the team, apart from the product manager and scrum master. That's like 9 to 12 people in the team is the maximum size. And the reason for this is, you would say this is counterintuitive. A bigger team is always good, but what happens with the bigger team is coordination goes for a toss. Let's kind of think of this. If I have a 30-member team, and if I want to do a daily meeting with 30 members, I'm going to take an update from every member. It wastes a lot of time for the other members. Okay, and it's not possible for any member to be in contact with 30 members. So the thumb rule is, if your product is very big, and if you have more than 12 people, you divide this teams into two scrum teams. And in this companies, you will see we have something called as scrum teams, where they have so you divide them into logical parts. Okay, so the next is sprint. So sprint is like the heart of agile. Okay, so what you say in agile is, I want to be very nimble, I want to be very fast. In the past, we had waterfall method, where what used to happen, okay, you would have the requirements, and you would look at the requirements for, let's say, 4 weeks to a month, or and then you would kind of come up with your product definition, what is to be done, how it is to be done, and then you would start developing. Okay, and then in the final phase, you would kind of launch the product. This could take anywhere between 3 months to 6 months, and the product would be launched at the end of 6 month. What would happen is, in a fast changing world, we call it a VUCA world, right, which is volatile and very uncertain. So in this world, things change every month, things change every week. By the end of 6 months, maybe you have a product which is not even relevant, which the customer does not want, or maybe the customer just does not like the product which you're delivered at the end of 6 months, because you are talking to the customer only at the end of 6 months in waterfall, right? And that's why we have agile. Now, just to understand, waterfall is not bad. If you have hardware, you need waterfall. I cannot have agile for, let's say, an iPhone, right? It cannot be done every 2 weeks, every 3 weeks. So hardware still is following a lot of waterfall, but software is all agile. Okay, so sprint is something where you say it is a short time boxed period within a scrum, where the work is to be completed. So normally in any company, you would have a sprint of 2 weeks, and the maximum it can go is 4 weeks. So what they see is 2 weeks, you need to complete the work, you need to define the work that can be shipped to the customer, that can be shown to the customer. So you might not release it always, but at least you should have something which can be kind of possibly demoed to the customer. And the reason for this, we'll see, is because agile is all about feedback. So you need to get quick feedbacks with the customer. If you keep on showing small development work to the customer, you are always sure that, yeah, sorry. Okay, so you're always sure that whatever product you're building is what the customer needs. Okay, so sprint, and we'll speak about it. So what are the sprint ceremonies? There are 4 sprint ceremonies, and that's what I'm saying. Again, if you go to any interview, even if you ask a senior product manager, they don't know these are called as sprint ceremonies or what are they. So it's good for you to note this down. So one is called this daily scrum meeting, where you define, okay, what has happened, what you are doing today. You have a sprint planning, in which which you kind of decide, what am I going to kind of achieve in this particular sprint. You have a sprint review, and you have a sprint retrospective. So let's look at these 4 quickly. So first we said is sprint planning. So before you start any sprint, the first ceremony is sprint planning, where you kind of, the team comes together. It normally on the first day of the sprint, or maybe on the last day of previous sprint, and they look at, okay, what is the product backlog? okay, what is the current team velocity? So what do you mean by velocity is how many stories does my team with the current bandwidth and current resources, how many stories can I deliver in one sprint? What is the current product status, and are there any technical constraints? They'll discuss all of that, and the output of that meeting is a sprint goal and the sprint backlog. So your product backlog will lead to sprint backlog. Let's say you have 100 things to be achieved in the product backlog, but in this sprint, which is just for 2 weeks, you will have only maybe 15 things to be done. Okay, so the participants are the product manager, the scrum master, and the development team. The next is Scrum, daily Scrum. So this is very important for any agile. While you make plan, you need to make sure every day that you are staying on path, you are not kind of going off track, right? So it is conducted by the Scrum master, and in absence of Scrum master, an engineering lead can conduct the daily Scrum. Okay, and there are 3 questions you need to ask in any Scrum. Okay, and this is where most of the companies go wrong. Your daily Scrum has to be 10 to 15 minutes. I've seen companies where the scrums go on for 1 hour, 1.5 hour, and there are 10 people, 15 people waiting for 1.5 hour, okay, without anything. So what they do is you need to ask just 3 questions. What did you do yesterday? You need to ask to every member, okay, what did you do yesterday? What are you doing today? And are there any blockers in your way? Okay, these 3 quick questions will just help everyone align what is done by what person. If there are any issues, they can speak about it, and that can get addressed in that meeting. Okay, so this is basically just to make sure that work is happening smooth and that no one is getting blocked for any work by anyone else. So you define that in this daily Scrum. So usually it should not be more than 15 to 20 minutes. Even in my company, it used to be like 1 hour, and I made sure that none of these meetings go above 15 to 20 minutes, and that kind of saves a lot of uh, time and a lot of productivity enhancement for the team. Okay, so the next thing is like a sprint review and demo. Any sprint cannot be complete with a review and a demo of the thing to be done. And this is what happens in most product companies. While they'll start with something to be good to be done, by the end of the sprint, they don't have time, and they just kind of make a very shoddy product. And that's why it's very important to do the sprint daily Scrum. Okay, so that this does not happen. So it's held on the last day of a sprint. Okay, many companies also have 2 reviews, so they kind of have 2 reviews. One is in the end of week 1, end of week 2. So what you define in a sprint review is, okay, in this sprint, if I had, let's say, 50 stories to be done or 15 stories to be done, how many stories have I completed? How many stories are on track to be completed today? And how many stories will spill over to the next sprint, which means I am not able to complete those stories for whatever reasons, right? So that is kind of clearly discussed in the sprint review. And it also helps you in planning the subsequent sprint. So let's example, I say next sprint I am going to take 15 stories, but now you know that even in your current sprint you are still not completed 10 stories, so those will kind of go into the next sprint. Accordingly, you will have to shift some of the next sprint stories to the next sprint, okay, the sprint after that. So it just helps you to kind of plan your next sprint properly. Okay, and most product teams also have a sprint demo, wherein the engineering team kind of demonstrates the product they have created in the last sprint to the product manager, and the product manager gives feedback on that. Okay, after all of this, you come to sprint retrospective, and you can look at our friend Dilbert. He's acting as a product manager there, and he's saying that I have added all the features that all of you have demanded, and now our product is a worthless hodgepodge of complexity. So he's saying, I appreciate your inputs, and I could not have failed without you. So that's what happens in most of the companies, right? Where they call it teamwork. And so this is what you do in sprint retrospective, not exactly finger pointing, but you look at, okay, what went wrong? Okay, so what worked well and what could be improved, and what went wrong, and how can we kind of improve that, and what do we do in the next sprint so that these mistakes do not happen again in the next sprint. Okay, and they make some actionable commitment. Now if you see, I've seen this across companies, this is the most neglected sprint ceremony, but it's one of the most important, because people just don't have the time for retrospective. Okay, so I would suggest, if in your company, you should make sure you have this, if not in one sprint, at least in uh, after every 2 sprints, you should have it. It just gives you a right perspective. Okay, so the next is Scrum artifacts. So you need some basic artifacts for carrying out your Scrum, and we'll talk about all of these in very detail. In fact, all the practicals in our main course, right? So some of them are like we already spoke on product backlog, burn down chart. So we talk very important. We'll talk about it in detail in the main course. Sprint backlogs, sprint burn down. Your impediment list. What is kind of holding you back? Your backlog delta reports. So all of those are something that a product manager needs to know, needs to kind of have handy. Okay, so again, quiz time. Let's ask some questions. Okay, so let's look at the scenarios. Few of the current sprint stories have not been completed in the current sprint. They were supposed to, but they have not been completed. And these stories will now spill over to the next sprint. So which is the sprint ceremony in which your team will discuss about this particular thing? Will they discuss in the sprint planning, review, scrum, or retrospective?
Retrospective.
Perspective.
Retrospective. Anyone else?
Review.
Right. So it's a sprint review. While retrospective, also they will say retrospective is about more about why and what can be done. So they uh, mostly, it will be first discussed in the sprint review. Okay, that out of my 20 stories, 10 are kind of falling out of the current sprint, and they need to go to the next sprint. So these stories will spill out to the next sprint. In retrospective, you don't talk about the next sprint. You just talk about the last sprint. Okay. You talk about next sprint in terms of what can be done better, but not the day-to-day approach. About you don't talk about exact stories, you talk about the overall theme. Okay, so that's sprint review. Okay, next question. So Jack, who's a front-end engineer, is blocked in his work as he is not receiving the required backend support, backend APIs from Rose. Okay, in what sprint ceremony will he raise this issue?
Daily Scrum.
Perfect. Exactly. So daily scrum is for all these issues, right? You're not getting required support from some team members, so you'll kind of discuss that in daily scrum so that it gets addressed. Okay, next one. So many of the sprint stories were not completed on time as some of the team members went on an unplanned leave. Also, many of the stories were underestimated in terms of time effort. So where will the team review these issues? In what sprint ceremony?
Sprint planning.
Retrospective.
Yes, sprint retrospective. So this is talking about the past, right? Remember we said that, okay, whatever happened in the past will be discussed in the sprint retrospective. In planning, you just look at what is to be done. It's very kind of quantitative. I have these 10 stories, these are to be done. But all the analyzing work will be done in the sprint retrospective, where you define and kind of suggest improvements for the future. So that's sprint retrospective. Okay. Again, I'll say, you should know all of these are very standard terminologies, and that would help a lot to you in your work and also in your interviews. Okay. Okay. Now coming to a very interesting part about product discovery. Okay. And this is like state of the art thing in product management. So product discovery is basically, let's say, a period where you and your team focus on building the right things as opposed to building the things right. Okay, so you first discuss what is the right thing to be built, and then you will talk about how do I build that thing right. Okay, so why you do product discovery is to quickly separate out the bad ideas from the good ideas. You might have 100 ideas and 100 of things to be done, but product discovery helps you to find those 5 ideas from that 100 which will work fine. Okay, an output of product discovery is a validated product backlog. And I'll tell you, if you look at products, we say 80% of the products fail, and that's the reason is the product discovery is a failure. The product discovery is not done properly, and this is the single most reason for product failures. So if you don't have a strong product discovery, your product will fail for sure. Okay, and we'll see why. So why is product discovery necessary? So again, let's go back to our friend Dilbert, who's saying, who's a product manager. He's saying your user requirements include 400 features, and that's what we see happens, right? The clients want the sun and the moon and everything under that, right? So do you even realize that no human will be able to use the product with such complexity? And normally someone will say, okay, so let's add one more feature called easy to use, right? So that's how the product management or product kind of design happens in corporate, and that's why you need a very strong product discovery. Okay, so let's look at how Google does that. So Google has 3E design for product discovery. Anything that is launched by product has to go through this funnel. So first is talking about empathy, where you empathize with the end user. Okay, we'll look at that in detail. Second is expansive thinking, where you kind of brainstorm and think of what all can be done for the user and what all can be done to achieve that goal for the user. And third is experimentation, which is very important in agile. It's all about experimentation, all those A/B tests, etc., where you kind of test whatever your whatever your hypothesis is, you test that and make sure that is the right fit for the market. So let's kind of go one level deeper into this design and let's look at Stanford's design thinking process by Stanford. Okay, so these, if you talk about design thinking, you would kind of hear this term thrown around loosely across big companies, across everywhere. It's like the new thing, right? Design thinking, you have to be design thinking. In interviews they ask what is design thinking. Okay, so these are the steps, standard steps in design thinking. 5 steps. One is empathy, where you empathize with the customers. Okay, so what do you do in empathy? You kind of have interviews for the customer, you shadow the customer, you seek to understand, you don't be judgmental, don't bring your own biases. Look at the pain point of the customer. Who is the customer? Why does he want? Is there a requirement really? Then you define those customers. You would have 100 different types of customers, and maybe you define 5 personas. Okay, which are the different types of customers? What are their roles? What are their challenges? What are their pain points? So it's like, you have this complete exercise, and then you crystallize that into a proper definition of your customers. So you look at the specific challenges and pain point. Once you have this, now what is my customer, what are the pain points, and what do I need to do. The next step is ideate. Okay, so what do I do now? So you sit with your team and you ideate all that can be done for that, for solving the issues. Okay, so you share ideas, you kind of diverge and converge. We'll look at that also. And you do the yes and thinking. So we'll look at this approach in the main course. And you prioritize your idea. So once you ideate, the next step is prototype. You look at doing some quick and dirty thing to quickly make a prototype, take it back to the customer to check if that works for them, that if that will solve their problem, if that is what they're looking for. So you create mock-ups, you create storyboards, you kind of fail fast, you iterate fast. So the thing is not about getting it right the first time. No one gets it right the first time, right? It's all about failing fast and failing quickly and iterating quickly. Okay, and this is all about testing. So you look at role plays, you talk back to the customer, what works, what are the impediments, and iterate quickly. Okay, that is the design thinking. So next time anyone asks you and kind of just throws around this term loosely, understand that this is what exactly design thinking is. Okay, let's look at the same design thinking model in a different way. So you have a general problem. Okay, you don't know much about the problem, you just know there are some general problem, and you start observing, which is the first step, which we will call as empathy. And this is called as divergent thinking, where you kind of just expand your horizon and don't limit yourself. You start looking at all the empathy and look at all the problems. And then once you hit that, you know that okay, I understood the problems, then you converge that into some specific problem. So you kind of get insights out of this. This is what your define mode is, right? So we call this as the problem space. This approach is called the double diamond approach. Okay, so this is the problem space which will give you take you from a general problem to a specific problem. Okay, and then once you have the specific problem, now you need to attack that problem. So you need to generate ideas to attack that problem. And then you kind of brainstorm, you just let loose. No idea is a bad idea. Let everything come in. Okay, and then once you kind of have a lot of ideas, then you again sit, and what ideas you need to implement out of that, you decide that and prototype those ideas. Okay, so that is how you come to a solution. This is called as divergent thinking and convergent thinking. Okay, so you kind of diverge and then you converge again, you diverge, you converge again. It's also called as the double diamond approach. And see, this is what the beauty of product management is. I told you, right? It's not just applicable for your corporate, it's also applicable to your personal life. Take any problem you have, apply this double diamond approach, and you will see most of your problems will get solved. Okay, and again, I'm telling you, just you can make note of this. These kind of things, when you talk, people know that okay, you are not talking loose terms, you know things. So the double diamond approach is also what is like the core of design thinking. IBM calls it the loop because you see it's called like the infinity. You go from here to here, from here you test idea and go back. So it's called the loop. Okay. So what you do is you focus. What is empathy? If you are making a coffee maker, you are really not making a coffee maker. You are actually saying, I am making an experience for the end user. I want my customers to enjoy the coffee and have a happy time, drinking my coffee. And that's how I'll make my coffee maker. I won't put the best machine and the fastest thing and the best motor in there. That's not important, right? You focus on the customer. So that's where empathy is, and that's what you design your products accordingly. Okay. Now, next is for any discovery, it's very important to identify risks. Okay. So risks are to be identified at the start and not at the end. And if you do that, you will see your products won't fail, or the product failure rate goes much lesser. So what are the different kind of risks? So one is the value risk. So wherein you say, how much will the customer value my feature? Okay. The most cases you will see the value of the feature is only in the mind of the product manager and the team. They think, okay, this is a great feature, the customers will like this. But if you ask the customer wants something else. So that's why you need to know at the value risk, and that's where you want to talk to the customers and look at whether they'll really enjoy or appreciate that feature. Usability risk. I'm making something, but can the user figure out how to use it? We saw the example of Dilbert, right, where he says, I have 400 kind of features, but the user cannot use it. What's the use of the complete product? Feasibility risk, right? So product manager wants to do everything, but there's a technical debt which we discussed, and the engineering team, you have to discuss with the engineering team whether that is a possible or not, whether that is possible within the given time frame or not. So that is what is your feasibility risk, whether you can build that product in that given time with the given quality. And the last is business viability risk. The product I'm creating, can it be sold? Can the sales team support this? Is it a legal product? Is it allowed as per the law? Or do I make something and I have something legal issues with the product? Are there any data privacy norms which I'm kind of violating regulations? So this is also a very important risk. All of these risks are to be identified in the discovery phase. Okay. Let's look at a case study of IBM. Now, IBM has undertaken a very large scale design thinking transformation. IBM is a very old company, right? And they had a way of doing things where they had a very sales driven culture of building things. The sales team is asking something, so you build that. Or the engineering team is saying, okay, this is the best thing to do, so you do that. So now they are kind of changing that to a design thinking culture where they are kind of following what we saw, the five kind of diamond approach, the 5 steps. And they have kind of built a massive design center in Austin, Texas. So that shows their commitment to it. They have built a center especially for design thinking where they take classes for their employees. So every year, hundreds of design thinkers graduate from that design thinking workshops. Okay. So now, once we're done with any questions till now, we'll go to the next phase. Okay, good enough. So any agile, the most important thing that you'll hear, or one of the most important thing, is MVP, which is the minimum viable product. Now, like we discussed, right, in waterfall, you kind of do this complete requirement analysis, working on the product, kind of testing the product, and then going to the product, then going to the customer. We don't do it that way in agile. In agile, you kind of create the minimum viable product. So what is a MVP? What is the simplest product that can quickly build, that will achieve the goal for my customer? Maybe the product is not the best, it is not achieving 100 out of 100 thing, but can I at least achieve 25 out of those 100, 25 most important things out of those 100 requirements of my customer? That is what I will call as my MVP. Okay. And in fact, what I say is, don't go to your customer with MVP, don't go to your customer with the product. You have to go to your customer with the MVP, which is minimum viable prototype, which means even before you start creating your product, you have to go to your customers with a prototype, which can be either on paper, or it could be, you have prototyping tools like InVision, etc., where they can just click it, look at the screens and say, okay, this is what I want, this is helping me, this is difficult, I am not understanding this. And then you build the product accordingly. Okay. So you have to always remember, we to speak about, you go to the customers with the MVP, minimum viable product. That's false. You have to go with the minimum viable prototype before going with the minimum viable product. So this is a classic case of what MVP is, right? So if you have to build a car, you don't build it like one wheel, two wheel, and then you put the chassis and the body, and then you have the car. Because in this, you will have 4 steps and the customer is not happy till the 4th step. He is not able to do anything till the 4th step. You are building a car like this, okay? And don't take it in the literal terms, but when you want to build a car, you first build something like a roller skate, and then you have something, and then you have a cycle, and then you have a bullet, and then you kind of build a car, right? So what it talks about is build something which the user can use at least, so the user is happy before and not at the last. Okay, so how do you empower your user? And also it makes sure that you are building always the right thing. It does not mean you build in different direction, because when you're talking MVP, you are doing an incremental product. Out of 100 features, you are building 20 features, and then you're adding some more features, then you're adding some more features and some more features. And this is what you'll see even if you look at Google search. They did not go have everything in the first day, right? They had a very simple search bar, and then they added that search helping you with the search terminal. As you kind of start typing, it gives you some search keywords, and then they added images, and they added many more things, right? That is called as an MVP approach, and that is called as iteration, which we even saw in the example of Air BNB, where they first just had the basic thing, and then they kind of kept iterating and kind of went to where they are. And like I spoke about the MVP prototypes, right? So this, you see, this is InVision, wherein you create a screen. You don't write a single line of code. You just create some screenshots. You add something on the screenshot. You link the screens, and you give it to the user. So user can actually click, and something happens when you click. Okay, and that gives you a very good idea of whether customers are liking it or not. Okay, so what are the MVP pitfalls? Many companies, what the thing is, MVP is something which is like a substandard product. So I can just make anything and quickly give it to the customer. That's wrong. Even if you're creating MVP, you have to make sure your product quality is very good. It has to meet the benchmark. So it does not mean that you create your product poorly, and it should be robust. It should be having their security features. Okay. So everything has to work fine, but you are not going with all the features, just some of them. So whatever features you are providing should be reasonable good to serve the purpose. Okay. So the next is, let's look at what are the traits of a good product manager. While we kind of discuss this, all of these things we kind of enlarge and discuss in the bigger module that in the course. I'm giving you a snapshot so that helps you understand what a good product manager is. So the first and most important is, any good product manager should have a good decision making skills. As a product manager, every day you will have to make at least a dozen of decisions, ranging from small decisions, of whether I add a checkbox, whether I add what, what drop down, what works best, to bigger decisions, to even strategy level decisions. So you need to have very strong decision making skills. Okay. And for that we have some standard frameworks which help you. So it is not a haphazard. Decision making is a very, it's an art, but it's also science, right? So let's look at one matrix. So this is what we call as feature prioritization matrix. So if you have a lot of ideas, okay, you will kind of make different criterias, and you will kind of pitch those in how does it match the criteria. So let's look at, if I have to create 3 ideas, if I have 3 ideas, I'll have 3 criterias. Okay, what is the customer pain point? Will it is it high or is it low? Is it addressing, is this feature addressing something which is a high pain point or a low pain point? Is it technically feasible? Is it aligning to my brand? Okay, aligning to my brand image, aligning to my scope. Now these are just example. You can put n number of things here. Okay, you can discuss, define your own things, and then you kind of put a high, low, and you can, so some companies also have scoring out of 10. Okay, and then you kind of do a total, or you do a weighted average, and see, okay, this idea is worth 5, this idea is worth 2, this idea is worth 6, let me go with 2, let me go with 9. Or you can give, okay, I'll give 50% to the customer pain point, 50% weightage, and maybe this takes 55, 25 and 25, right? So this is called as feature prioritization matrix. Now this, if you look, is not just in product management. You can apply this in your own life, in your own personal life, or in your career, and this will help you a lot in making decisions. Okay, so that's what we say, no, decision making is a science. It you can actually have a lot of frameworks which help you take better decisions. And this is just one. We have a separate module on this in the course, where we talk about all the decision making matrices, decision making features, and all the decision making kind of different kind of frameworks. Okay. Next is good product managers create engaging products. So have any one of you seen this new Netflix phenomena called as the social dilemma? It's been launched recently and it's been a huge success.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yes, right. So this social dilemma is all that is talking about this slide. If you know this slide, you know what they're talking about. Okay, this is called as the hook model of creating habit forming products. This is what Facebook does, Instagram does, Twitter does. They create habits in the user, and this is a very dangerous, it's a very powerful, very dangerous kind of framework. What it does is it creates habits in the customers, habits in the if it is used properly, it can create wonders. If it is kind of used wrongly, that's why ethics is a very important thing here. It can actually create addiction, and that's what, if you look at this, it talks about the addiction of how these technologies are actually controlling us and controlling what we do. Facebook, how our attention span are going down. So this habit creation hook model talks, it's very powerful for any B2C product, even for B2B, but B2C where engagement is very important. It talks about how do I create, anything for any product. There need to be some external trigger for the customers to use that. Okay. And when so let's say example, if you're using Facebook, the external trigger for you is the Facebook kind of Facebook notification that you get from your friend, or the Facebook icon on your home on your phone. And that is something that you click on, and that's where you go inside that Facebook, right? Next is, what is the action that the user takes in anticipation of reward? So if you're feeling bored, you'll just go to Facebook, you'll just scroll and you will get some information. You could go to LinkedIn to get some professional information, right, to network with someone. So that is the action you take. And what is the reward of that action? So maybe on Facebook it is entertainment, on LinkedIn it is I'm getting a in the better network, I'm getting some knowledge. And what is your investment? So let's say in Facebook your investment is like, once I do that, I have 1,000 friends of Facebook, or maybe I have 50 likes on my kind of photo. I post something on Instagram and I have 100 likes, and that is what they call as the investment, which keeps you coming back, which makes you stick to the product. So if you see, this is a cycle, it keeps going back and back. So the aim of any product manager is to create external triggers and then lead the user to the internal trigger. So this is called as hook cycle. If you go through multiple hook cycle, these external triggers, they get converted into internal triggers, which means that you no longer want to have a notification from someone to open Facebook or Instagram. You will have internal triggers. You are feeling bored, you are feeling restless, you are feeling anxious, and you'll start opening Facebook, you'll start opening Instagram to just spend your time on that. That's called as internal trigger, and that is why this is so dangerous. If it is not done properly, it can create addiction. Okay. So let's look at how Instagram does that. So Instagram, the external triggers are your apps, like let's say Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, app notifications, app icons. What do? You open the app, you check images, you like, you comment, and the rewards you get is, okay, others also like on your image, your boredom is gone, you meet old friends, you get followers, you find new friends. And what is your investment? So your investment is your memories. Your Facebook will have thousands of your friends, you'll have some 500 images, some photos, likes. Your followers are increasing, that gives you a high, right? And that's why you keep doing it again and again and again, and that's what creates these internal triggers, where every time you are feeling bored, you'll kind of open Instagram, you'll open Facebook, or if you're, it's basically the fear of missing out. Okay, my friends are doing something, I need to know what's happening in their life, so you'll just open that, right? So this, in fact, we have a separate module for this in the main course, where we talk about all the hook and how do you kind of create habit forming products in an ethical way. Okay. Next is, any product manager should address some basic questions. So one is, who are the end users of my products? What are their roles in their organizations if it's a B2B product? I've seen many product managers, while they create products, they don't even know their users. Okay, you cannot have everyone as your user. You need to know, who are my users, what are they doing in their organizations. Okay, so that's called as personas, which we saw. What are their key pain points? What are the missing features which can help them? So that's empathy, which we saw is the first step in your design thinking. What features can help my sales team to sell the product better? That's called as product growth. I'm just giving you some keywords which you can also kind of look more into, and we cover all of this in depth. Then what are the important feature gaps between me and my customer? Very important to know. Benchmarking or competitor analysis. So how do you look at your customers? How do you kind of do a complete tear down of your customer's product and kind of look at what is to be done? What is my short, mid, and long-term product roadmap? So this is called your product vision, right? You cannot just create haphazard products. You need to have a roadmap. You need to have a vision. Those are just some of it, and there are many more. Those are some of the key ones. Okay. So finally, like we said, it's all about solving your customer problem and not just about adding features. And this is what happens, right? So let's see how many more features we can cram in. So it's not about just cramming in more features, right? And we see actually remotes like that where we don't know what the hell is going on and how to. It's all about solving problems. It's all about starting with the customer and working backwards, and not having a feature and taking it to the customer. So if you kind of heard about what we said and noted it, and if you follow it, I'll tell you'll be better than most of the product managers who are out there, because most of them, some of them even don't even know this, or they don't follow it. And if you kind of note it, follow it, it will help you a lot. Okay. So having said that, before we go ahead, any questions till now? I'm just having a time check. So we have some 23 minutes more, and Khalil needs to talk. So
Yeah.
so quickly, okay, let's go to. So we talked about, okay, the past of product manager, the present. What is the future of
before you go ahead, I got a
Yes.
question for you.
Yes, yes.
How do you come about KPIs for the product you've just developed?
Okay,
or,
okay.
or you're about to develop? How do you come into
Right.
that?
Right. And in fact, this we kind of discuss in the main course. So KPIs, you kind of that's one of the tasks of product manager, right? This all comes in the product vision and product strategy, and then defining a KPI. So what is my KPI? Is it like stickiness? I want my customers to keep coming back. Is it monetization? Okay, that my product should earn this much money. Okay. Or is it something else, that okay, I want this much amount of customers viewing my videos per week? Okay. So if KPIs are something which actually will help you create the KPI product feature. So it is between the product. It is something which you kind of have in parallel. And before even you start with the product backlog, you define the KPIs. That is like your end goals, right? Someone asked about the end goals. So KPIs are also your end goals. How will you measure success? See, in any product story that you write success criteria and we kind of, when we go with product stories, you write, okay, I will be successful if this happens, if the user is able to use my product properly. So your KPIs is something you define right at the start, that what I want to achieve and what I call as success, what I define as success. And then you kind of track that throughout. And once a product goes live, and that is also what we call as a release retrospective. Like we have a sprint retrospective we spoke about. Most companies do not have this. They have a release retrospective where you kind of go back and see, okay, I kind of launch this product, how is it helping the customers? Okay, is it actually, are the customers actually using my features? Whatever I wanted to achieve, all the KPIs, are they actually getting all the key performance indicators, are they kind of getting achieved, right? So does that answer your question, or is it something specific?
No, that's fine. That's
Okay,
good for me.
thank you. So this, in fact, KPI, we have a separate complete kind of chapter on that, where we talk about how to set KPIs and how to track those. Okay.
Can I ask a question, please?
Yes, please.
Yeah. What's the difference between sprint planning meeting and review planning meeting?
Okay. No, you mean sprint planning and sprint review, right?
That's sprint review and sprint
Yes,
planning.
yes. So see, what happens is you have this continuous sprint. So let's say we start with sprint 1, 2, 3, 4. Now you are in sprint second. Okay, you are on the last day of sprint 2, and you've seen that out of your features, 70% of the features are done, but 30% are not done. So that's like they are going to spill over. So that's what you do in sprint review. You review that, okay, 70% of the work was done, 30% is pending, and that 30% will now spill over to the next sprint. Okay. And that's why your sprint planning and sprint review go hand in hand. Your sprint planning cannot happen without the review of previous sprint, right? So you need to review this sprint, and that kind of goes into sprint planning for next sprint. So you now know that, okay, I have this much extra work. So in the next sprint planning, you will take that, and you'll say, okay, okay, now I need to do this 30% extra. Do I need to take out some story from this current sprint, okay, or put it for the future? So what happens in many companies, the sprint planning and review happens back to back. I mean, I would have 2 hours or 1 hour. I have first 30 minutes, I will do the sprint review for the last sprint, and then the next 30 minutes I will do the sprint planning for the next sprint. Okay. So sprint planning, a sprint review kind of feeds into your sprint planning for the next sprint. Review is always for the current, planning is always for the next.
Okay.
Hi,
And one
hi.
another question. Sorry. What would you say is a product vision?
Hmm.
We talk
So
about product vision. What are they? What are you? What
Right.
is your own on this? Yeah, please.
Right. So product vision, like that's what we spoke about. You have a company vision, and then you have a product vision, and most of it at times they are the same, or at times they could be different. So let's see, your product vision can be anything that you define. What motivates you to kind of create that product? Some of the products could be just, I want to help people, or like Khan Academy. Have you heard about Khan Academy? It's like one of the free thing, so that's like helping students, who are school students, to kind of get free access to education. Okay. Whereas let's say Microsoft wants to do something that they want, computer for everyone. So that was their vision, right? So what do you want to achieve? It's either in terms of monetary, either in terms of impact that you want to see in world, or in terms of solution to existing problems. Okay. So that's what your product vision is. I want to solve this problem. I want to solve either for my customer or for something for myself. That's what your product vision is. And then you have strategies, product strategies to achieve that vision. Okay. So it's, you always start with the product vision, and you have a product vision canvas for that, where you, okay, say, what do I want to achieve, when do I want to achieve, okay, what are my success criteria to achieving that. So that's what your product vision is. It's basically starting with what I want to do, right?
Thank you.
Okay. So let's say if I want to be an engineer, so that's my product vision. Then what I'll do is I'll get into an engineering college. That's like, calling the strategy and the tactic of it. So it's like starting with the end in mind. Okay.
Thanks.
Thank you. So let's quickly go to what is the future of product management. So let's look at, there was a survey by LinkedIn wherein they asked, will product managers be relevant after 10 years? So 86% of them said yes. And in fact, they are going to be much more relevant than they are today. Okay. So that tells you that it is a very strong and very growing, kind of management stream, which is going to get stronger and stronger. Second, so someone asked about product vision, right? So this is very interesting, wherein they kind of surveyed product managers, and like Khali said, that product managers are problem solvers. So that's what they like, to solve problems. So someone asked, what are the global problems you like to solve as product professionals in the next coming years? So climate change, you see 24% are saying, I want to solve climate change problems, I want to solve health problems, I want to solve poverty problems. So these are not, so when you spoke about product vision, see, this is your product vision, right? It's not always business, it's also impact at times. And that's what your product vision is. Okay. Or it could be simply, I want to be the best, I want to achieve, grow my company into a $1 billion company, and that's why I want to create product for that. That's more of like a monetary focused vision. So those are the problem solving kind of thing that the product managers are looking at. Okay. So that was it for this course. I wanted to quickly keep it quick and crisp for you. I believe, we discovered, in fact, we kind of discussed a whole lot of things which will help you a lot if you kind of noted it down, you remember it. You also try to apply this. So the frameworks we learned, you try to apply in your, even if you're not a product manager, try to apply it in your work, maybe your life, the double diamond approach. Try how to how can you look at your life or your work with the double diamond approach. When you spoke about the sprint ceremonies, look at, uh, are these things happening in your companies? If not, can you try to take initiative and do those? So all of these things are very practical thing which will help you a lot. And of course, in your interviews, if you noted down a lot of this thing, talking about these things will help you a lot. Okay. So while this was just like a surface, where we spoke about everything and gave you a taste of what it is, in advanced course we go much deeper and we kind of create strong product managers. So there's an in-depth coverage of 14 product management modules, right from product vision to creating habit forming products to how the practicals of how do I create Jira stories, how do I create epics, how do I manage those sprints. All of that will be covering in details. Okay, you would have a 24 hours classroom training from the comfort of your home. You'd also have some practical work experiences for developing products to enhance your learnings, and Kali will talk about this in detail. You would also have a lot of product management interview tips which will help you crack any product management interview, be it Amazon, Google, any big company. It will help you be prepared for those interviews. And you'll be training on using industry demand product management tools, so we'll be kind of helping you understand how to use those tools, what are the best tools. So all of that will be part of that training. Okay, right. So that's it from my end. So Kali, over to you.
Okay, thank you very, very much, Pratt, for that very extensive session. Very, very insightful. I think